Thank you for attending today. We just attended and completed a hearing on the regional greenhouse gas initiative and other climate change related issues with a number of well-known, in fact, world-renowned experts. In my portion of this, I protested and fought back against Governor Wolf's supposed claims backing the regional greenhouse gas initiative. According to the governor and the Climate Action Plan, the Wolf executive order includes drastic predictions of flooding, droughts, heat waves, increasing air and water pollution, and dangerous sea level rise. In each case, in my testimony and attached figures, I documented the facts, the science, and the data. I declared my fact check of this that it was false and misleading. I'm going to turn this over now to some of the other speakers tonight that we heard this morning. First on this to speak will be Dr. Patrick Michaels, who's a climatologist, past president of the American Association of State Climatologists, senior fellow of the CO2 Coalition and the Competitive Enterprise Institute. And by way of introduction, I'm a geologist and executive director of the CO2 Coalition, along with being an expert witness for the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. Dr. Patrick Michaels.
Thank you, Greg. It's nice to see you this morning. Thanks for coming out. The remarks I gave can be summarized very quickly. Governor Wolf issued a proclamation on climate change in 2020, but it was called Proclamation 2019-07, in which he talks about the need to reduce emissions and something called the Pennsylvania Climate Action Plan, which was published in 2018. It's a very thick document and has a great deal of influence. The problem with PCAP, as I would call it, is it suffers from two fundamental errors. The first one is it does not adhere to best scientific practice. In making a forecast, the guys at the National Weather Service every day have a number of different computer models to choose from. And they tend to choose only one or the ones that have been working in the situation that they have. PCAP had 102 models to choose from. And they looked at all of them, got the picture from the average of them. Well, 101 of them are wrong, and one of them works. Perhaps we should call a special prosecutor, because it's the Russian model that gets it right. Best scientific practice would not use the models that don't work. It would use the model that works, which would be the Russian model. But the Russian model is so cold that it would destroy global warming as a relevant issue. And it's been rerun for the next UN meeting. It's even colder than all the rest. The other mistake with the Pennsylvania Climate Action Program is it assumes an emissions scenario that is now recognized as being wildly off. Nature magazine, which is not an inconsequential publication, had an article in it that the author said, authors of Nature don't usually say this, stop using that scenario. It is not business as usual. And if you look at the way emissions are actually going up, remember that we have policies in place, like the Paris Agreement. You're going to get about half as much warming from changing carbon dioxide as the erroneously assumed emissions scenario that the Pennsylvania Climate Action Program uses. When you put those two facts together, the warming that is expected between 2050 and 2000 to 2050, so up to 30 years from now, drops from 5.4 degrees Fahrenheit to 1.8 degrees Fahrenheit. The facts gut the disaster, and unfortunately that means that Governor Wolf's proposal no longer holds water because what he based it upon is demonstrably wrong. I'm sorry to say that. He's a good man, but he's not a climate guy. I can see how that happens. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Next up is Dr. David Legates. He's professor of geography at the University of Delaware. He served as the Director of Climatic Research. He's the author or co-author of more than 250 professional publications. Dr. David Legates.
Thank you. I wanted to talk today. Usually I talk about observations and models, and most of the people up here do that very well. What I want to talk about today was the so-called evil gas, carbon dioxide. It is not an evil gas. It is not a pollutant. It is not a magic climate control knob that carbon dioxide and control of carbon dioxide will change the planet's temperature, change the amount of hurricanes, tornadoes. It doesn't do that kind of thing. It's very much a minor player in climate change. Water vapor, in particular, with respect to greenhouse gas, is a much more important greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide, accounting for about 90% of the variation in the radiation budget associated with the planet. The other thing about carbon dioxide is many people don't know is that commercial greenhouses actually pump carbon dioxide in to the tune of usually 4 times ambient amount of carbon dioxide. The reason for that is that plants grow better under more carbon dioxide, and the interesting thing is with more carbon dioxide, they use water more efficiently. So one of the things we've been able to notice through satellite records over the years is that the planet is actually greening. That in fact, with some exceptions such as deforestation areas, but most of the planet is actually greener because of more carbon dioxide. That's generally a good thing, particularly when it relates back to agriculture and feeding humans on the planet. That is a very important component. So carbon dioxide is a necessary component of life and is not a pollutant.
Thanks, Dr. Legates. As he just stated, if we look at the combination of modest warming combined with increase in CO2, we see that Earth's ecosystems are thriving, prospering, and benefiting, and humanity and the citizens of Pennsylvania are profiting from them. I want to introduce Joe Bastardi, who has just a couple short comments on his testimony.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm blessed in what I do, because this is what I always wanted to do, be a meteorologist and forecast the weather. I'm probably the oldest operational forecaster on a global level that's taken an active, if you want to call it, stand against this. And the reason is because the weather's majestic and infinite, and the fact is that even the introduction of man-made CO2 into the atmosphere, there are so many other variables that will fight it, and you see this all the time as to why models cannot predict correctly what's going on, not only with the warming over the longer term, but even in shorter term. A classic example was Texas and how they missed there with one of the worst outbreaks ever. But believe me, everything these guys are saying, bingo, right on target.
Thanks. And thank you, Joe. Legendary climate forecaster. Next up is Mark Morano, Executive Editor and Chief Correspondent for CFAC's Climate Depot.
Thank you. My message here today is very simple. The rest of the world is in awe of Pennsylvania's energy policies and fracking revolution. The Information Energy Institute was shocked at their forecast in 2010 when completely bust because they did not account for states like Pennsylvania leading the world in replacing coal with natural gas fracking. I'm here to say don't mess with Pennsylvania because it is the formula for success, the envy of the world, and what Governor Wolf and the Reggie system is trying to do is be the first cuts of 1,000 cuts, death by 1,000 cuts. This is not something Pennsylvania should even consider. I ask Pennsylvanians to be aware of what's happening. Pennsylvania helped the United States be the world's largest oil and gas producer in 2019. Pennsylvania is responsible, along with the fracking revolution in other states, for the United States becoming energy dominant for the first time again since Harry S. Truman was president. More energy exports than imports for the first time since 1952. That means we don't have to rely on Middle Eastern oil. No more endless foreign wars. We have energy security. You're worried climate change will cause wars? Then follow Pennsylvania. Don't come in with a bureaucratic stream of auctions and cap and trade and costs and redistributing. Well, what Governor Wolf claims he'll be helping the workers he displaces and all the money, and he'll be able putting politicians in charge of saving the workers that they're going to be putting out of jobs in this industry is akin to someone whose boat is sinking and you come to rescue them, but you're the one who put the holes in the boat to sink them in the first place. Reject Reggie, reject Governor Wolf's plan. Pennsylvania should have got the Nobel Peace Prize, not Al Gore and the United Nations, for what they did with fracking revolution and lowering U.S. leading the world in lowering CO2 emissions. Better than all the European signatories who looked down in the nose when we withdrew from Paris. So thank you very much.
All right, tell us what you really think, Mark. I'd like to now introduce Representative Darrell Metcalf. He's chairman of the Environmental Resources and Energy Committee. Where most of us testified this morning. I want to thank you, Representative Metcalf, for having us and having the bravery to stand up and do what's right for Pennsylvania in fighting the regional greenhouse gas.
Thank you, Greg, and thank you to all of our presenters today at our hearing that we had on Pennsylvania CO2 and climate. As I sat there and listened to the evidence presented, the facts presented, the arguments presented by these experts that are here today, that several of them have addressed you through the microphone here this morning as we get ready to wrap up this press conference. As I sat there and listened to them this morning, I thought to myself, how is the other side listening to what's being presented? How can you ignore the facts? How can you ignore these logical arguments with the data that they even showed this morning and walk away from that and still be convinced that the sky is falling? The sky is not falling. Americans are prospering. We are still the nation that is the envy of the world. The greatest nation on earth. God has blessed us with a great bounty, especially here in Pennsylvania, with the natural gas that is here under our soil, with the jobs that is created, with the energy prices that have been brought down, with the vegetation that grows across the state of Pennsylvania. It was mentioned today about the Congressman G.T. Thompson's project with trees and how they help to absorb CO2. Well, we learned that in early years of school, don't we? That you need CO2 for plant growth. This is ludicrous that we've come to a place where people are demonizing a byproduct of life, that the way that God has created the world is ultimately used to grow the food that we eat. So I think we need more of these types of presentations. We need more arguments that will get out to the public to let the public know that there is nothing here to be feared. The sky is not falling. Americans are prospering, and if we stay the course with protecting our nation's constitution, our state's constitution, as we're attempting to do through pushing back against this unconstitutional, illegal effort of Wolf to impose a new tax on Pennsylvanians that is not authorized in our law, that can only be authorized by the Pennsylvania legislature. If we allow him to get away with this, he'll destroy jobs, he'll harm our economy, even in a greater way than, not as much as the harm he's done as he has over the last year with COVID, with these unconstitutional dictates, but it will continue to damage this economy and take away the jobs that Pennsylvanians are really dependent on to grow ourselves back out of the economic devastation of the last year under this tyrant's dictates that have been unconstitutional. Some of my colleagues are behind me, Representative Rapp, Representative Borowitz, Representative Jim Struzzi's here, whose district in Indiana County will really be harmed with the coal-firing power plants really damaged by the Reggie intervention into our marketplace here in Pennsylvania. Representative Lee James is here, Representative Bud Cook, and I think I captured all of the members that are behind me. But thank you to our presenters, thank you to Greg. His book's doing well. Good to see that the truth is getting out. People are embracing it. People are reading it. And we need more of our citizens to rise up and say, no more. We won't have our economy damaged through fear-mongering. Get out of our way. Let the marketplace work. And let's grow this economy and let's create jobs for our citizens once again so they can get back to work and enjoy this great American dream that we've been blessed with. Thank you.
Thank you. It'll be interesting to see how the press covers our hearing in this press conference. We can predict that we'll get the usual ad hominem attacks that will be called science deniers and more. As David Legates reminded me last night at dinner, if you have the science, the facts, and the data on your side, You present the science, the facts, and the data. When you don't, you attack the messenger. So I want to thank you all for coming and remind you that there is no climate crisis, and we'll take questions now from anyone.
Answered everybody's
I guess we did a pretty good job convincing you.
What you said is not refutable.
That's right. So I love CO2, and so should you. Thank you very much.